Welcome to this new Tech Captains episode. So today with Gareth, we are welcoming Chandru, who's worked at several companies like Vodafone, Cisco, Toshiba, over 20 years career until he started 2-3 years ago to build Alkimi Exchange, the world's first decentralized ad exchange. Hi Chandru, how are you today?
Hi, Ron. I'm doing fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. You had a long career in some large corporates, some less large, and it all started 2 decades ago for you with an engineering bachelor. So would you say that having a degree today would have the same impact that it had at the time?
Yes, firstly, hi, Gareth. I hope you're well.
Hi,
Um,
Chandru. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I would think so. Well, a bachelor's degree gave me what I believe is a baseline of technical education. But I do understand that quite a lot of people look at a bachelor's degree as a prerequisite to get into the industry, which is what used to be in those days. But nowadays, with so much of information available, so much of tools available for learning, I think a bachelor's degree isn't the first step towards a career in technology, but it's more about learning, adapting, and then meeting the market's needs, and yeah, just delivering on what the market needs are. Really.
And so do you want maybe to walk us through, in a few sentences for a minute about your career path and before starting Alchemy, which we will dig much deeper into after?
Sure, absolutely. So basically, I started off as a developer with a company called Toshiba, which you may have heard of. It's a big player in the digital television market, and I used to work on Toshiba's digital televisions. And I started there as a developer before I moved to the UK, and I worked as a tech consultant with quite a lot of companies like British Telecom, Cisco. I worked for Virgin Media, Vodafone, among quite a few of the other companies as well. I've worked in roles of developer, technical architect, a program manager, information security, data specialist, data privacy specialist, and so on. So that's been some of the few things that I've done with my career.
I see. Okay, that's very interesting. And so, what prompted you, if I may say, to drop all of this and a great career path in big corporates, where you were doing very well, to just start a blockchain as centralized platform out of nothing?
Well, there's always the power of technology. When you realize that there's a new technology on the horizon, you would want to, or at least I loved tinkering with it and seeing what its capabilities are and how we can actually apply the technology to solve everyday problems. So it was way back in around 2015, 2016 that I moved into developing some products on the blockchain, and was involved with a group of friends developing a few products, some not very successful. But nonetheless, it gave me quite a lot of insight into how blockchains work, how we actually use the technology to solve everyday problems. So it always used to pique my interest. And I used to talk to family, friends, my network about blockchain technology and its capabilities. Um, and I've always been involved in startups with friends. Been it's There's a certain amount of excitement that's associated with a startup. There's no defined role within a startup. You have to take on the role of a developer, a tester, architect, everything. You have to virtually even move the table, assemble the furniture, sweep the floors, everything in a startup. So there's a certain type of passion that is involved in building a startup, and I wanted to be part of that. And I got in touch with my co-founders, Ben, Shoni, through common friends, and we figured out that all of us come from an advertising background. All of us had an interest in blockchain technologies, Web3 technologies, cryptocurrencies, And it started a chain of events discussion about the problems that we saw in the advertising market and how we thought that the Web3 world, the Web3 technology can actually solve some of these problems in the advertising world. That was the start of an idea. And we started about 2.5 years ago. And when we were having those initial discussions, we never dreamed that, we never thought that we could actually deliver what we have delivered in the time that we have. So it's been an exciting but still challenging journey
So
so far.
Chandru, you just mentioned that you all had an advertising background. What's your advertising background? Because previously you mentioned Toshiba, Vodafone, Cisco. So what is it?
So basically, I used to work on Sky's AdSmart product, where it was about targeted advertising. So when you are watching a certain program in your house at a certain time, and your neighbors also watching the same program on the same television channel at the same time, advertisements are delivered to each of your homes based on your profile, your interest, and your preferences. So that was the platform of targeted advertising that I helped build at Sky. And when I moved to Virgin Media, I was also one of the architects who worked on the targeted advertising platform for Virgin Media on connected TV. So that was my involvement with the advertising world.
I see. And what's the gap that you are feeling with Alkimi then?
So basically, in the advertising world, there are a few problems. The biggest one, the elephant in the room, is a lack of transparency. So Alchemy is building what is the world's first decentralized advertising exchange. An advertising exchange is basically something that you can think of as an eBay for ads, right? So when I, as a user, visit a website, I'm obviously shown some content, but along with the content, I'm also shown some ads. Now, these ads are selected on real time based on my location, my preferences, quite a lot of other factors as well. And so that particular ad slot is actually auctioned off, and people who want to show their ad to me actually send responses, and they bid on showing their ad to me as a user on that website. But this is very similar to how eBay would work, right? If you want to sell a pair of shoes, then you start an auction and then people start bidding. But then, and I'm not saying eBay works like this, but this is how traditional ad exchanges work. If you were to think of eBay as not telling you what those responses were, if you want to sell your shoes for a minimum of $50, and if eBay were to tell you, okay, I conducted an auction, here's $55, without telling you who bid on that, how much they bid, but just to tell you, here's $55, when they could very well have $100 or $90 or whatever that is. That is how a traditional ad exchange works. Complete lack of transparency.
I was going to say that one of the things with these ad exchanges, so I've worked at 3 companies where we've implemented those ad platforms. And one of the things I've always wondered is the sort of performance side of things, right? Because you have this live auction going on that's then sending an ad based on who wins that auction. But there must be a time, there's a kind of accepted time within that industry that if you can't return something, that's not going to be good, right? Because you're slowing down what's been shown to a user. I mean, what are the sort of constraints around that?
Absolutely. We've got very low latency here because as a user, the amount of time that I actually take to scroll down a website is the time that the publisher or the website has to actually show the ad and make sure that the ad registers so that the ad can actually be translated into a potential sale. That's the whole point of advertising. Show the right kind of ad to the right kind of person who's likely to buy the product that is being advertised. So the latency that we're talking about is of the order of 200 milliseconds. So 200 milliseconds is what we have in order to conduct that auction, arrive at a decision as to which ad needs to be shown, and that ad to be rendered to the user. So we are talking very, very low latency.
Very, very low latency. Yeah, and that user could be, I guess, anywhere on the planet, right? So in terms of your exchange,
Absolutely.
you've got to optimize for delivery. Yeah, yeah. Because that 200 milliseconds can obviously be stretched quite a bit by someone who's in the west coast of the US and your ad exchange is making some determination in London or whatever, right?
Absolutely. So the ad can be rendered anywhere in the world. A website may be predominantly, let's say, a UK-based website, but it can be accessed in the US or in Australia. So we need to be decentralized enough to conduct an auction to a site that is closest to the user's location and then deliver the ad. Not only that, the ads that are being shown to the user should be relevant to the location of the user itself. If I were to show an ad that's more relevant to a US-based audience to somebody in Australia, well, yes, the ad may be shown within 200 milliseconds, but it's very unlikely to actually translate into a sale.
I see. So what's your infrastructure like? Do you use like one of the cloud platform, or you use your own servers? Like, how do you do that? Do you reroute everything based on the IP address at the DNS level? What happens?
Yes, so we have our own decentralized node architecture where certain parts of our ad operations are run on centralized servers, which are basically decentralized all over the world in terms of the publishers that we onboard, their likely locations of access, their users' location, and we have a decentralized pool of these clusters, decentralized in location, obviously. And also we have various layers of decentralization where node operators, we call them, can be located anywhere in the world, who verify the auction has been conducted in a fair and transparent manner. They arrive at a consensus and then they notarize the validated data onto a decentralized ledger. So it is not only about transparency, but also auditability.
So I was going to say, so if I understand it right, you have nodes to run a state, it's called a state channel, I believe, and then there's a pool of tokens to reward those people, and then you can make money by staking those tokens, and you get a cut of the ad fees that you're charging, right, up to 25%. So how do you run a node? How do you get those tokens? What's that process?
Tokens are available on various centralized exchanges. It's also available on Uniswap, centralized exchanges like KuCoin. We've got so you can go onto these exchanges and actually buy the ads tokens. That's one way of acquiring the ads tokens, which underpins the whole infrastructure. Regarding the nodes itself, your question is very timely because we are currently in the process of rolling out our node infrastructure to our ads holders. And we will be releasing more information about how people can actually acquire a node. But essentially, we want to make it as fair and transparent as possible again. So we currently, in the first stage of onboarding of node operators, we have more demand than we have more demand from node operators than we have the need for nodes. So we are conducting a raffle mechanism to ensure that everybody gets a free and fair chance, a fair chance at becoming a node operator. And all of this is currently being put up on our portal called Alkimi Labs. So this is all of the information should be available sometime middle of next week for people to actually know the details of how they can participate in the raffle mechanism and how they can actually become a node operator.
Okay. And we've gone a bit backwards there because I should have asked you first. So your system runs on Hypergraph. Can you explain for maybe people who are listening what the difference is between that and say Ethereum, which they may be more familiar with?
Yes. So this is essentially a DAG technology, and that is slightly different from the normal blockchain technology, which is like a linear chain of blocks. But what the technology offers us, what we are able to do, and this is very important for the ad infrastructure, is for us to be able to run custom consensus mechanisms. The custom consensus mechanism is what allows us to validate that an ad auction was conducted in a fair and transparent manner. Because um, generally, technologies like Ethereum, solutions like Ethereum, actually do not provide you with the custom consensus mechanism, and they determine their actions are based on what we refer to as a data oracle, which means that you're actually depending on data from a third-party source, and you can actually write smart contracts which make yes, no decisions. But a custom consensus mechanism can actually make intelligent decisions to conduct an auction or verify the results of an auction in a decentralized manner. And that is key for a decentralized ad exchange to operate. So what is essentially a decentralized validation mechanism of an ad auction, providing that transparency and auditability to all the partners in the ecosystem.
See, that's interesting, and I have a few. I have wanted to ask before going to the next part of the book part of the podcast is if you had any advice for younger people starting in the industry. So obviously you explained a bit at the beginning of the conversation about the engineering degree and what to do, etc. But now that you really had, I want to speak more in terms of the industries because you've had the experience of super large corporates and very small startups and how it compares and what you would recommend to younger people in the industry to start with.
Yeah, interesting question. I would actually look at it slightly differently. Rather than looking at whether it's a good option to work for a big corporation or a startup, I would look at what you can do in either a big corporation or a startup, what you can learn. That is key more than where you work. Where you work or what you do becomes secondary as long as you appreciate the big picture. And that's something that I would really like to pass on. It is very important for people who are starting off in the technology industry or any industry for that matter to actually see the big picture. There's this wonderful story of a janitor who used to work at NASA, and then the president of the United States once asked the janitor, what's your job? And the janitor says, I'm helping put a man on the moon, right? So that's the big picture. It's as long as we see the big picture, and my
I've not
role.
heard that story. That's good.
It's well, you can actually look at this and say, okay, I'm cleaning, I'm sweeping the floor, or I'm doing some cleaning work, or you can say, whatever I'm doing is helping put a man on the moon, and it is the truth. So it's very important to see the big picture. Once we start looking at the big picture, we immediately appreciate why we are doing something. Because coding or testing or architecting, all of these are, again, what we do in order to actually achieve that purpose. And as long as we see that big picture, I think half the battle is won. The other thing that I would like to pass on to the new people who are getting into the industry is to embrace technology. We are living in a wonderful time where we have tools like ChatGPT, where you can ask the AI tool anything at any point of time, and you can ask the same question in hundreds of different ways until you're able to understand the concept. This is something that was not available to us 20 years ago. We only had one book that was shared by many people, or we then had Google, who would just give us answers which were not really catered to our questions. You had to look at various articles, various blog posts to actually determine how to actually use the information to solve the problem. But in today's world, we can actually ask pointed questions and get very specific answers. And this is a wonderful tool to have. I would urge people to actually use the technology. There's always the question of, oh, will it replace our jobs? Will it take away our jobs? Sometimes there are things that happen that are not under our control. I think we should look at what we can do with what is available and make the best possible use of it. So I think it's a wonderful time where we have access to tools like ChatGPT and other AI tools and try and embrace them to make the most of what we can do.
No, that makes sense. No, that's very interesting. So the part I wanted to go is the tradition we have in the podcast that the guest introduces a book they really like and they would like to recommend. And for you, the book is Start With Why from the now super famous Simon Sinek. And the book is about how great leaders inspire everyone to take action. So my question is why this book, and did you get inspired to take action?
Yes, absolutely. I think this book was a great read, um, simply because it connected to me on a level where it actually touches on your values and belief system. Um, One is if we are very clear about what our purpose is or what our beliefs and value systems are, the actions are invariably based on the value system. If we as an individual or as a team or an organization are very clear about the purpose that we are trying to solve, the purpose that we are trying to achieve, the rest will automatically follow. Conversely, if we want to achieve something, then we need to identify the purpose and inculcate that into our value system. The number of times we've just said, okay, we're going to wake up at 5 a.m. and then go for that morning jog, or I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m., I'm going to meditate. It's just the what I intend to do. But if we were to really be clear about why do I need to wake up and take that morning jog, or why do I need to wake up and meditate? If you're clear about the why, the what, the how, and the what automatically follow. And it's been beautifully explained in that book. Um, and that's something that I love that book for, to make it very clear as to why we need to do what we need to do.
Oh, that makes sense. That's interesting. I think I might give it a read actually. And Gareth, I believe you had one or two other questions for Chandru that you didn't get a chance to ask.
I did. So the first one, I was reading, looking at some of your other videos online, and some of the other things that you've written, and you posted a video, I'm guessing quite recently, I think it was quite recently, which was for Pride Month, and you were talking about how you felt that people should really embrace Web3, that it will help break down barriers and stop discrimination. Can you expand a bit more on your thinking here?
Web3 as a technology can potentially solve a lot of problems. One of the key problems that it can solve is to avoid discrimination. Now, typically, when we sign in or when we register ourselves to a website, we are asked to provide our first name, last name, gender, whatnot, right? So depending on the website, the amount of personal information that is collected varies. But there is no need, or there isn't a complete need for that website to have access to all of that information. This is similar to somebody trying to get into a pub and the security guard at the pub stopping somebody and saying, can you prove that you're over 18 and I'll let you in? And you show them your driving license, which has your name, your address, your what car you can drive, how many penalty points you have, and whatnot. None of which is actually relevant. But if we were to say there is a proof that I am over 18, and you just need to access that proof, and then you can let me in or not. That is what Web3 actually enables you to do with the concepts such as zero knowledge proof, where you don't need access to the actual information because it has already been proven. It is zero knowledge. So the proof is there, and then that proof is sufficient for a certain action to be taken. Also, you can actually connect your wallet and log into a website and access a utility or a service based on just the contents of your wallet. So you're no longer Gareth or Ron or Chandru, you're just a wallet with a certain ID. And the authorization of whether you can access a service or not is just based on the contents of that wallet. So if you were to think about a concept where you're applying for a job, right? Let's say there is an NFT that is present in your wallet, that is tied to your wallet, and that NFT is proof that you have completed a certification or completed a course. That NFT just says there is a certain candidate with a certain ID who has completed a course from this day to this day. They have scored, let's say, 80% or whatever that is, whatever that mark is. So it is that NFT which is in no way tied to Gareth, but Gareth has access to that wallet, that NFT which provides proof that you have completed a course is present and tied to that wallet. So if you were to just connect your wallet to a site, then that site will be able to read the contents of your wallet, and the site will be able to determine what your skills are, what courses you have completed, and then determine whether you have passed the initial assessment or whether you are skilled enough to take a certain job or not, without knowing whether you are, what the color of your skin is, what your location is, what your religion is. None of that actually matters. This is the whole concept of zero knowledge proof. And that is what enables us to avoid discrimination.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. And then I guess the last question I'll ask is, on your website for the exchange, you talked about something I'd never heard about before, which I found really interesting, was this idea of the generative economy. And I've read a few descriptions about it after that, including one from a lady called Michelle Ashen, that's related to South Africa, where she was talking about it meaning, stakeholder ownership and involvement, more than one moving away from the notion of exclusivity. And I just wanted, how do you feel that the exchange relates then to the generative economy? I mean, there's an obvious bit I can see, but is there something less obvious in there?
Well, generative economy is all about every person contributes, and the more each person contributes, the more we grow collectively. And in this whole decentralized ad exchange that we are building, every partner is able to contribute and then have something in return. For example, one of the key actors within an advertising ecosystem who has not gained anything by the ad being shown is the user. When you or I, as users, are targeted with ads, what do we stand to gain?
That's true.
Virtually
Very
nothing.
True.
We may be shown ads that are relevant to us, or there may be ads that are not relevant to us. So as users, they are intrusive if there are too many ads on the website. If the data that is collected is not following the necessary GDPR principles or principles of the data privacy of the land, laws of the land, then there is a problem. So there is potential for data to be collected where the privacy policies are so long that nobody actually gives it a read, and we just click accept all. So there are problems where the users are given quite a bad deal. But with the whole concept of the ad exchange, the users can actually stand to be rewarded for having connected their wallet to a website, for having consented to be targeted with certain ads based on data that is available in their data connected to the NFTs that are present in their wallet. So there are all sorts of concepts where users who are actually shown the ads can be rewarded. And this is something that we're working towards. And every token holder can become a part of the whole ecosystem and be rewarded for holding the token, whereby the token price is actually the transaction fees that we make out of showing an ad is actually used to buy back tokens, which means there is a buy pressure on the token, thereby increasing the value of the token. So just by holding the token, you're actually standing to make profit. By becoming a node operator and providing processing power to actually run the ad exchange, you're actually rewarded by rewarded with the token. So and the publisher as well, who is the website owner, stands to gain a lot more revenue by using Alkimi's Ad Exchange because of we cut down quite a lot of hops. We cut down unwanted hops. We make sure that the transaction fees are fairly reduced. So all of this leads to the publisher actually making quite a lot of money just by using a decentralized ad exchange. On the advertising front, the advertisers get more ads for the same amount of ad spend. So there is everybody contributes to the whole ecosystem, and in turn, they're all rewarded. That's the whole concept of generative economy.
Okay, I love it. All right,
That makes
sign me up,
sense.
Chandru. It's nice to see though you're obviously very passionate and you really believe in it and it really comes across. So yeah, it sounds exciting.
Some of I believe some of the best products come out of I don't know what's the right word. Maybe the closest I can get is frustration that you want something to work in a more efficient way, and then you go about trying to set things right. That was what prompted us to come up with a solution that we thought was better than the traditional solutions available in the market.
That makes sense. I mean, on these nice words and these great excitements coming from you, Chandru. Thank you for spending your time with us today and speak to the audience and everybody listening us to us on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Deezer. The list is too long to name them all. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Chandru. Let me know how I can run a node. I'm interested to try it.
Absolutely.
All right, goodbye.
Thank you very much.